Guys, and welcome back to another tutorial on common-lisp. What I'm teaching you guys today is how to load files into the REPL, so that way you can have separate documents and you don't always have to work here at the REPL. And I'm going to also be showing you just some basic arithmetic. We started with some of that in the last tutorial when we talked about plus sign, or the plus function. And today we're just going to talk about all the other arithmetic functions, and they all follow a similar pattern, so it's going to be pretty simple. You'll see in a moment. So let's just get started. First off, I'm going to just put some sort of function in here just so that way it has something to load. So what we'll do is we'll just start out with the plus function like last time. We used 2 and 3. So again, very same example as last time. And when you start saving these files, it's going to be good to get in the habit of loading it with .lisp. You could technically not use .lisp, but it's just helpful because later on, when you get more into adding dependencies and making packages with common-lisp, there'll be other extensions, and it helps. It's very helpful so that you can keep track of like what file does what. So .lisp files will usually be your functions and things that actually do stuff. So that's important, I would say. So save it as something with .lisp. I'll just call mine load.lisp. So we're gonna save it real quick. And if the REPL wasn't opened in the same folder that you have your .lisp file in, you have to use some sort of extension like that. But if you've opened it in the same thing, you don't have to. So what we'll do is we'll use I'm pretty sure it's a macro called load. And remember, it's going to be within parentheses because every macro and function has to be within parentheses. So we'll use the macro load, and what we'll do between quotes is just the name of the file, and then close quote, close list. So just a single list, load.lisp, and we hit enter. What you'll see is loading file load.lisp, which is something that load prints, and then it also prints loaded file, so we know that everything was correct. And T is just telling us that it was successful. If it was unsuccessful, so let's try loading something that doesn't exist. You'll see I use ASDF a lot. We'll load and it'll say, oh, load a file with name ASDF does not exist. So important. So now that you've loaded it and everything, you might be wondering if you're sharp and you really watched the last tutorial that it didn't print out the result of this, and you might be wondering why. And that's because this is REPL, but pretty much what load does is it almost drops into its own REPL that is this list file. So it'll be like, okay, we're at a REPL, and then it'll load and the load.lisp, and then it's almost like it's a brand new REPL just for this file. So it'll read everything in from the file, then it'll evaluate everything from the file, then it'll print everything from the file, and then if it can't find anything, it moves back to this REPL. So if we want to actually see the result of this, we'll have to print it to the screen, because then it'll actually print during the print stage. Whereas if we wanted to see the final result here, technically speaking, this is the last list that was run, not this. So that's what gets printed at this REPL. Long story short, let's just print the results. So in the first tutorial, we used the printing function called format. For this tutorial, we're just going to use print, and I'll explain the difference between print and format near the end. But first off, let's just talk about all the different arithmetic functions. So they follow a very similar syntax to the plus function. You just use the character you would expect from most operations, like minus is the dash symbol, and you can do 3 and 2. And then as far as division goes, you just use the slash, and we'll divide 10 by 5. And then if you want to do multiplication, you just use the asterisk, and we can do 2 by 5 by 3 or something. Now if we come over here and load the file in, so we'll go load.lisp, it will print out all those results, and you'll see we get 5, 1, 2, 30, which is what we'd expect. 5, 3 minus 2 is 1, 10 divided by 5 is 2, and then 2 times 5 times 3 is 30. So now this brings up an interesting question though, because with minus and division, obviously the order matters, and the way that it would go about doing these operations is it'll subtract 2 from 3, then whatever that result is, it'll subtract the next operator from it, so it moves left to right essentially. And same goes for division. Technically speaking, same goes for multiplication and plus, but it doesn't actually, the order doesn't matter that these operations are performed. but these two it does matter, so it'll always be performed from left to right. So if, say, we did 3, 2, 1, and then we did 10, 5, 2, we should get 0 for this one, and then 1 for this one for division. So if we press up, it'll load the last command, and as you see, 5, 0, 1, 30. Now I mentioned earlier that print and format are different. The way they differ, say we want to print out 5, so we'll just print the number 5, or we want to format, or still technically printing, but format T5. In this case, you probably won't be able to tell the difference. If I remember correctly, you won't be able to see, must be a string. Oh, okay, so yeah, for format, you must have a string, so we'll do this like that. So as you see here, we'll get, 5, 0, 1, 30, 5, 5. So it doesn't look any different compared to here. But if, say, we were to put 5 in quotes here, you'll be able to notice the difference immediately. Because basically, format prints things in what is called human readable form, or what Lisp calls human readable form. With strings, it gets rid of the quotation marks. It also just makes things readable for a human being. So print essentially prints it out the way that Common Lisp looks at it. So print will print out, if you give it a number, if you give it a list, it'll print out the way that Lisp stores it, whereas format will print it out in a way that is supposed to be more readable and not as, data / computer intensive looking. So that's kind of the difference between format T and print. We'll go more into format later because format's kind of a huge beast, whereas print is really quite simple. But that's it for this tutorial. Hope you guys enjoyed it, and I'll see you guys in the next one.